You can always count on the good old Honda City, can't you? And it's exactly this reputation of dependability, rock-solid reliability, and fuss-free ownership experience that has sailed it through 5 generations and nearly 30 years in India. That's right, the City is one of the longest-running car nameplates in the country, I think second only to the E-Class. But it's not like there haven't been any wild cards along the way. I mean, who can forget the Gen 1 Type 2 VTEC? Or even the Gen 3 on the whole. But since then, it's sort of settled into this please all, offend none, get the job done template. The thing is, things aren't what they used to be, and perhaps that's not enough anymore. Sedans on the whole are on their very knees in the face of SUVs. People have gotten way more demanding in general, and the competition hasn't exactly been sitting still this whole time. In fact, it's raced ahead. So what the Honda City needs right now is a little dose of excitement. I'm Gavin D'Souza. This is the latest Honda City facelift. Let's talk about it. Now, I'm going to need you to tell me down in those comments what you think about the front end of this Honda City. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Or something in between? Put it in the comments, because really that's where the majority of the changes are. And of course, while you're there, please give this video a like if you enjoy it, and do subscribe to the Autocar India channel. And frankly, it's quite transformative and quite impressive that they've done this with a facelift of a car that's just been around for about 6 years now. The look resembles newer Hondas like the Prelude, and that's only a good thing. Those sort of frumpy, chunky headlights are gone, and there's these really slim LED units. In fact, they've got projector elements this time around, and quite a distinctive LED DRL pattern on the top that goes into a central tube light-like connected light bar. Guess they just had to. But what I do like is what they've done with the rest of the front. This extension down here, which is body colored, I think it gives it a lot more aggression. So does this very angular grille. It's almost horizontal, and I like that a lot. It's back to that sort of arrow shot look, the really aggressive thing that started with the Gen 3. Now here you'll find active aero vents that sort of let air in through and out through the wheel arches, and a more conventional grille down there. Overall, I think it's done wonders to transform the City into something a little more enticing. It's a small change, but a very effective one. Now in profile, not a whole lot has changed, and in my opinion, this is the weakest angle visually of the Honda City. You see, it's a very practicality focused design, so they've given it enough ground clearance, and they've made sure there's enough room in the back. But as a result, the wheels look a little bit small. Now really, that's not so much an effect of the wheel size, because it's about the same as what rivals offer. It's more that this bit over here between the wheel arch and the top of the bonnet is quite chunky, and that makes the wheels look smaller than they actually are. Would a larger wheel size have helped? Perhaps, but that might have messed with the ride. Anyway, it is a new wheel design that looks far sportier than before, and it complements the front end quite well. Now at the rear, like at the front, the changes are very subtle but very effective, and I think Honda's done a great job of effecting change without adding too much cost to the car. For instance, the tail lamps are the same, but they've just been smoked or blacked out, and the effect is absolutely tremendous, especially on this new black color paint. There's also these little details in the tail lamps that liven things up quite a bit. There's a spoiler up top here, this black trim here and here, and a really aggressive looking diffuser and these vertical reflector strips down there. The H badges at the front and the rear are now flat and two-dimensional with a dark background, a trend many manufacturers have recently gotten on board with. It all adds that little bit of aggression to the car, and like I said at the start, that's something the City sorely needed. Now this is the strong hybrid version, and as before, it loses out on boot space compared to the standard petrol version. But because the petrol version has over 500 liters of boot space, even with the compromise, it's still pretty good. It loses out on some height thanks to the battery pack underneath the boot floor, but it still has plenty of depth, so you can load bags all the way up to the seats and fit in quite a bit. But this being Honda, they haven't fully skimped out on practicality, despite this being the hybrid, because despite all the batteries, you still get a space-saver spare tire. Now, Japanese cars in general, and the 5th gen Honda City in particular, have always had interiors that focus on practicality first, and I like that that's been retained here. But the good thing is that they've also made an effort to up the quality and perceived quality quotient, and that really can be felt with this facelift. Let's start with that practicality and usability that I talked about. And In terms of that, there are buttons everywhere, and I'm always grateful for that. The steering wheel is festooned with them. Everything from your ADAS controls to, of course, your phone and your audio and controlling that screen over there. The buttons over here too, it's simple things like one touch down for all 4 windows. The fact that the steering is adjustable for rake and reach, the small things that you appreciate as an owner over time. Then there's the quality. It doesn't shout about its quality, but it's all very well built and high quality material stuff. The plastics are present, but they never feel grating or really rough looking. Even these, it's a hard surface up here, but you don't notice it because it's a nice grain of plastic. They have put some nice soft touch material down there. In fact, it's even cross stitched, and there's a new sort of hexagonal textured strip over here, which I think used to be wood and metal in previous versions. They've even added an ambient light strip under there, and there's one in the touchscreen, which I'll get back to in a moment. They've also changed over a lot of the metallic surface into gloss black, and that's actually worked quite well with the new sporty outlook of the car in general. This is particularly noticeable here around the AC vents and even on these controls. And bless these controls, they are possibly the best AC controls in the segment or many segments around it. They make this lovely clickety motion when you rotate them, and everything is easy and within reach. An area where practicality isn't so great is the in-cabin storage, unfortunately, because while there are storage spaces, they're all a bit shallow and unusable. There's this tray over here which is not big enough to hold a large phone, and whatever it does hold will fly out. Plus, if you use one of the cables attached to your phone, the phone doesn't fit with the cable as well. There are decent sized cup holders, that's good. They're hidden behind the gear lever, which also I'm glad is a proper gear lever and not some button or knob. But even this storage down there, presumably for change, is very shallow and things will just fly out of there. It's not very practical. Now, this is an interesting place for the wireless charger. It fits a large phone well. And you can even switch off the charging and use it as a storage area, and that's very handy because you don't always want to charge your phone, and like I said, there's not a lot of practical storage for stuff. The only thing is that there should have been a sort of stop to prevent your phone from sliding out, because if you brake hard, that's exactly what it will do. Still, it's a fast charger and it will top up your phone pretty reasonably quickly. There's also a tiny bit of storage under here, but it's not particularly large. You do get bottle holders in the 2 doors and some storage there, but really the stuff that you need to access could have been better executed down here. The seats are slightly different. They feel almost as comfy as before. I do miss those winged head restraints that were there in the previous car. These look and feel a bit ordinary in comparison, but that's not too much of a complaint because the seats themselves are nice, supportive, comfy, well cushioned. I really like them. But a great new addition is seat ventilation. Yeah, that's something they've added to the front seats over here, but what they should have also added to sort of keep up with the rivals was powered front seats, which this car still does not get. Now we got to talk screens, and some things have remained the same while others have changed. This one remains precisely the same in that it's a semi-digital instrument cluster. The right hand side is an analog speedo, but it's incredibly clear and easy to read, so I have no complaints about that at all. The one on the left is also very simply laid out, but it is a screen and it's completely configurable. You can get all sorts of stuff. In the petrol car it's a tacho, but here you can get battery state, energy flow. It's very informative, but the best part, it's very clean and very legible, and I think that's more important than flash value when you're driving along. But then onto this screen, which is new and a bit of a mixed bag. It's larger at 10.1 inches, and that's very welcome, but as a result they've had to bring it out of its recess in the dashboard and put it proud of the dashboard and the AC vents. That's all well and good, but as a result it's sort of angled too far back. They could have used the opportunity to make it a little bit more upright, because at this angle it catches so many reflections you can barely see it in most lighting conditions. This is particularly bad when you activate the new 360-degree camera, which, though the resolution isn't particularly great, it's only made worse by the fact that the screen is not very easily viewable in bright sunlight, even at its brightest setting. So that's a bit of a miss, something Honda should have fixed with this update, since they went through all the trouble of putting in a new screen. As before, the screen doesn't pack in a lot of features either and falls short of what rivals offer. Its basic monochrome layout also gives it somewhat of an aftermarket look, and it isn't particularly quick or responsive either. You do get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but pairing your phone is a hit or miss exercise. And overall, the game has moved far ahead in this area. When it comes to features on the whole, it has just about caught up with rivals, though powered front seats and a nicer audio system would have sweetened the deal. On safety, the City hasn't been tested by Global or Bharat NCAP, but it does get 6 airbags as standard and ADAS right from the second variant. The fewest changes, however, have taken place in the backseat. The 5th gen Honda City was and remains one of the best cars to be chauffeur-driven, and a lot of that has to do with the space on offer. I'm just under 5'8", that's my driving position, and I've got loads of knee room, and I'm sure even taller passengers would be just fine. They've got this lovely little rising footrest, which seems so simple, but it does wonders to alleviate comfort. It makes you feel a little bit more relaxed in your seating position. Headroom, however, for taller passengers might be a little tight. I'm just about okay, but yeah, you might be grazing your head if you're 6 feet plus. The seat itself is super comfortable. I don't know what Honda's putting in its cushioning, but it's just right. It's supportive, it's soft, it's plush, and it hugs you on all sides and still leaves a decent amount of comfort for the center passenger. Now, I don't like the fact that they haven't given you adjustable rear headrest. That's a very big miss on the safety front, but you do at least get 3-point seat belts for all 3 passengers. You also get a window shade for the back, which keeps out some harsh sunlight when it gets too hot, but I wish they could have included that here as well. Now there is a sunroof, but this being a sedan, of course, it's only to the front, but it's not a very large one. It doesn't come even slightly back. And while we're up here, I wish this roofliner was slightly better quality. Now, yeah, you do get AC vents, of course, and there are USB Type-C charging ports over there. All things considered, yep, I would not mind spending all my time in the back seat of the Honda City. With no mechanical changes under the skin, I'm not expecting the driving experience to be too different. For our drive today, Honda has only given us the eHEV strong hybrid and not the petrol version, which is unusual because it's probably the least selling of all the Honda Cities, but I guess it's also the most technologically advanced and shows off maximum of what Honda can offer here in India. For those of you not in the know, it too uses a 1.5 litre petrol engine mated to electric motors, but the difference here is that this petrol engine runs the Atkinson cycle, which, though down on power, is much better for fuel economy. The combination of electricity and petrol power means that this car makes a total of 126 horsepower, which is a bit more than what you get in the pure petrol version. But crucially, its official fuel economy rating is upwards of 27 kpl. The driving experience is as straightforward and serene as we remember it to be. The driving position is pretty great, you get a great view out, there's a nice little gap between the mirror and the A-pillar here so that you don't get completely blindsided, and everything feels nice and easy to use. The ergonomics in this car are absolutely spot on, and what I also like is the weight of the steering. It's not overly light and dead in your hands, but in fact it has just the right amount of weight to give you confidence and a great directness to it that makes it very, very pleasurable to change lanes or even hammer around a corner if you really want to. That being said, this is not the handler like some of its predecessors used to be, and particularly with this hybrid powertrain, it's not a car you want to drive in anger or enthusiasm. What it is a surprisingly able highway cruiser. Now yes, the performance is not explosive, nor is it a high revving enthusiastic engine like the standard IV-Tech that you get in the petrol car, but the combination of electric power and the Atkinson cycle petrol means that there's sufficient power on tap. For smaller overtakes, you can tap gently on the accelerator pedal and yeah, it'll pick up enough to overtake a car without too much stress. But if you absolutely floor it, and the e-motors and the engine are doing their maximum work, that's when you feel a bit of strain and stretch, and it doesn't feel particularly eager or exciting. Around town is where this car does its best work, and that's because as a strong hybrid, it can run a lot of the time in electric only mode. Unfortunately, this car, unlike the Toyota system, doesn't have an EV only mode, so you can't manually set it to run on electric only, but it does spend a pretty generous amount of time in electric only. That said, it also switches over quite readily to the petrol engine or a combination of the two the moment you get past a certain throttle pedal level. There is, however, an eco mode, and in this case it does prioritize the electric motor a bit more than in the standard mode. There is no sport mode, but there is a B mode, which also prioritizes regenerating and pulling energy back into the battery. Refinement for the most part is really good, and that's because for the most part you're running on electric mode only. It's only when you wake up the engine and really floor it that it starts to get a bit buzzy and a bit annoying. I suppose what also helps is that this car's running on those slightly weedy 185 section tires. They don't look particularly good on the outside, but I guess the benefit is that they don't have too much rolling noise either, so that improves refinement just a little bit, and of course fuel efficiency. And though I mentioned it earlier, I keep getting drawn back to the screen and my inability to view it properly on the move. But it is truly frustrating that you can't see this screen in bright light. Even at its brightest right now, I don't really know what's going on in that corner of the screen. And when you need it, like when you're using the parking camera, that can be incredibly frustrating. Speaking of cameras, this car now has a surround view camera array. That means it has 4 cameras around the car. And that means the lane watch camera, which is something that Honda pioneered, by the way, is now available on both sides. Earlier it was only available on the left, and there's a separate camera for that. Interestingly, though this car has 4 cameras for its surround camera array, the original extra camera that they added on the left is still there, so that mirror has 2 cameras in it. Just a weird fun fact, and sort of emblematic of how Japanese companies do things. And it's also this uniquely Japanese approach that has endeared the Honda City to buyers in its shrinking segment, and for many who have tasted it, nothing else will do. While the Koreans shower you with features and the Europeans focus on dynamics and feel, the Japanese bring something else to the table: quiet functionality. Ergonomics, material choices, cushion density, field of view, tactility, and even the fonts of the speedometer. You can tell that it's all been very carefully considered here. The downside is that, though functional, many things come across as too simple or basic by modern standards. And especially in the case of the new touchscreen, that is a speed bump in the City salvo against the competition. Still, you have to admit the new exterior design is incredibly effective, and the City remains the benchmark on interior comfort and is an excellent chauffeur-driven car. It also offers the only strong hybrid in its segment, which also makes it the fuel economy king. Though that comes at a price, since the powertrain is fully imported. Speaking of price, while the starting price remains the same, at the top end, petrol or hybrid, you'll be parting with as much as 1 lakh rupees more than the outgoing car, which is a lot. This Honda City facelift hasn't moved the goalposts or upset the status quo. It has, however, injected some much-needed attitude into what remains the most dependable and sensible sedan in the mid-size segment.